We're the Salas family, and these are moments from our around the world trip with our 2 kids. We started off in South America and North America, made our way over to Asia, and now we're transitioning from Japan to Vietnam.
We're starting in the northern part of the country in the metropolis of Hanoi.
To get to Vietnam, we had to take one last ride on a Japanese subway, and then we took a direct flight from Osaka Kansai International Airport to Hanoi.
Thankfully, we had a pretty uneventful travel day. We made it to Vietnam.
Thưa quý khách, máy bay của chúng ta vừa hạ cánh xuống sân bay quốc tế Nội Bài, Hà Nội.
So we make it to Hanoi, and the first step is checking into our Airbnb, except we had a little bit of trouble. Initially, we couldn't even find it.
We got dropped off at where our Airbnb was supposed to be located, and it in fact was actually right there, but it was pretty hard to find because it was kind of down this, what looked like just a dark pathway about 1.5 meters wide that I wouldn't have expected anything to be down. And from the street, it just looked completely black.
So basically it was tucked down this long alleyway, right? And we couldn't see it. There was no obvious signage, so we didn't know how to get there. And then once we get in, it's not as pictured at all from what I rented on Airbnb.
There were something like 4 or 5 floors, and each floor has its own room and then a bathroom right outside in front of it. And we had 2 rooms that we rented, but the thing was is that our true rooms were on the 5th floor and the 3rd floor.
I rented a 2-bedroom apartment with, I think, 2 bathrooms, and basically we're 2 floors apart and each has a public bathroom. So there are a couple of surprises there, but I think the big thing to know is that when you're traveling, things aren't going to be as pictured, and in your housing situation or otherwise, you just have to be flexible and roll with it. So we did. We have headed out to find food. We are officially checked into our Airbnb, relatively unpacked, and now in search of food. I'm really having to dig deep here because I've not eaten on the plane since our 9 o'clock flight when they served us an early lunch. It's now 8 p.m. So even with a couple hours time change, I'm pretty sure that was like 8 hours ago, which is about 7 hours and 45 minutes longer than I wanted to go between meals. So what were your first impressions of Hanoi?
Coming from Japan, which is remarkably quiet, the vehicles are quiet, everyone's, as we had explained before, if you've ever been to Japan, you know that people are generally quiet and very polite on the subway.
Especially the subway.
Or any public transportation. So Hanoi was kind of contrasting in that it's much louder. So there are, and I think a big part of that is that there are a lot of mopeds and motorcycles and things like that versus cars or electric cars, but they tend to make a lot more noise because of those vehicles.
I guess I was really struck by the bustle of the city.
There is a lot of, it just feels like energetic.
Energy.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy going on.
So those were our impressions coming out of the airport, but once we started walking around, the first thing that I noticed were all of the places to eat.
Yeah, so there are a ton of different restaurants that you can go to. There are street vendors, and then on the sidewalks themselves, there's a lot of cooking going on and a lot of food being served and people just eating literally on the sidewalks. It's kind of, there seems to be a pretty awesome sidewalk, what would you call it? Like food?
Sidewalk food culture? I don't know. It was really distracting going for a walk because I basically wanted to stop every other building.
One of the downsides of having all these things on the sidewalks, both mopeds and, you know, kind of impromptu restaurants where you could eat at, is that you would have to make your way around those things. So there's actually less sidewalk for you to walk on, so which wouldn't be a really big deal, but you know, with our kids in tow, it just becomes a little bit harder. Yeah, a little bit harder to go around.
The other thing to note about the motorbikes is they're not just parked on the sidewalks, they're everywhere on the streets, and you generally don't have a crossing signal to get across them, you just have to step out in traffic. So that's something that we had to learn to do as we were there, which seems a little counterintuitive. When you have small children with you, you don't want to step out into traffic, but it's just part of the culture there.
You can do it, Allie. Not now, though.
We got a boatload of groceries, 3 giant bags for about $30 US, and I got my first banh mi in the homeland. We happened to be in Hanoi on a Sunday, which seem like they're typically reserved for families. There's a large lake in town, and they close all the streets around it so they can be used for pedestrians to go out for a stroll, to have family time and community time, and there's tons of food and entertainment to be had. Such a beautiful Sunday. Everybody's out and about having a stroll on the boulevard here in this park, having a little ginger snack.
This is one of my favorite things that cities do around the world. When they pick one day a week or one day a month, when they shut down main streets and all the families come out to reconnect with each other, get some food, maybe see some live music or other kind of entertainment.
The first thing that we noticed is they had all of these power wheels available to rent, which was a total jackpot for our kids. We stumbled on this awesome block that is partitioned off for the kids to roll around in these little scooters. Check these out! Oh my gosh, Seneca is gonna die. We're finally gonna let him loose. As we kept walking down the historic corridor through these closed streets, we also noticed they had this giant inflatable bouncy castle, which was another jackpot for our kids. I feel like this is pretty much the best day they've had ever at this point. Crazy. The only other time I've been in such close quarters is when we took a subway in Tokyo and the white glove man packed us on. And if you've been in a train in Japan, you know what I mean.
After the kids had what I think would be the best day going around on the most amazing distribution of power wheels and then going through this really fun bouncy house kind of obstacle course music place.
And I got lots of street food, so that was what I needed.
I thought I was due for something too. So we went around and looked for a barber shop. I think we actually went to like a hair salon, a regular hair salon, and I got myself a haircut.
We're getting Martine an official Vietnamese haircut. Let me see the before. We got a silverback here.
I look fresh.
I've been here less than 24 hours When we travel, we have a mix of planned activities and also just roaming around our home base. So following the Sunday in the historic quarter, we wanted to set out in a new direction and see what else we could see, and we stumbled upon the French Quarter, which has these nice, lovely sidewalks that you can stroll on. What you got, Seneca? Oh, you see construction?
It may not seem like a big deal, but when you have sidewalks that are either not really easy to walk on or there just aren't any, when you finally get to a place that has broader sidewalks and it becomes a little bit more pedestrian friendly, it makes things a lot easier.
When you're traveling with kids, you always need to find green spaces where they can get out some energy. So we were able to walk around the historic quarter when it was closed to cars. We found the French Quarter to be pedestrian friendly because it had these nice wide sidewalks. And then we were also looking for a park, which we had a little bit of trouble finding one, but we were able to finally locate one in another part of town.
We got there, it looked like it had all kinds of really nice playground equipment, but the closer that we got, we realized that we had come probably about 5 years too late, because unfortunately a lot of the playground equipment maybe had broken pieces in the slides or jagged pieces of plastic. And so while the kids were really excited leading up to it, I ultimately just had to say, you know what, you have to kind of just play around it in the sand because it's not going to be too safe. And this is one of those things where, coming from the US, I think we take for granted quite a bit that we can just go to any number of parks and know that they're going to be safe.
As we walked around the park a little bit more, we did notice that there were some amusement rides, so at least the kids got that. It definitely was not a lost day for us. I think that's a roller coaster. After a sampling of Hanoi, we are going to drive 4 hours out to the coast so we can see Ha Long Bay by cruise.
We'll see you there.